One morning I was walking, and I'm usually walking through Jackson Ward and then down towards the north side area, and I realized the air is different. Once you cross over past Virginia Union, the air is lighter, you're able to breathe better. You know, even my running and my walking, you can look at my stats and see how I'm faster, you know, how my heart rate is better and all of that. And I couldn't figure it out until I started doing a little research about the air quality. And I realized that it's because we don't have any green space. We don't have enough trees. We have so much, you know, brick and mortar and concrete and all of those things that we were talking about that's causing so many issues. So I'm Giovanni Armstead Tucker. I am a longtime resident of Richmond, raised right here in Jackson Ward. I am a board member of Carmel Empowerment nonprofit organization. I'm a community advocate. I'm a wife. I'm a mother. I'm just all around Richmonder.
Could you please give us a definition of environmental racism?
It's such a loaded word, you know, but to me, what environmental racism is groups of people who are experiencing environmental discomfort because of climate change, different. I mean, for lack of better words, just experiencing it worse than other people in other sections and other races. And it's based on their race, it's based on where they are, it's based on them being condensed in certain areas that are known to experience it and nobody stepping in to help.
We see here in Richmond, as well as in cities across the country, that people of color and specifically Black and African American and Hispanic and Latino residents are facing disproportionate impacts to environmental concerns like climate change. So right here in Richmond, we know that the same people who are living in neighborhoods that face hotter temperatures due to extreme heat waves and the urban heat island effect are the same people who are facing impacts due to things like flooding and other environmental concerns related to air quality and other areas.
Redlining is the discriminatory practice of denying services to residents in a certain area because of their race or ethnicity. It occurred in the United States in the 1930s. Redlining has been a primary cause of the environmental injustices we see today.
Former United States government agency, the United States Home Loan Corporation would often give Black or minority neighborhoods C or D grades, indicating that these communities were hazardous or declining. These grades prevented the distribution of loans and other investment into these areas, and as a result, industrial corporations began taking advantage of these neighborhoods.
Robert Nelson, a historian at the University of Richmond, explained that the low grades given to minority neighborhoods go past racist attitudes. This is policy being made by the federal government in these documents, he explained. As a result, white families gained generational wealth while minority families were excluded. While the Supreme Court recognized that redlining was an unjust practice in the 1968 Fair Housing Act, the effects are still seen today.
Yeah, so where we see a lot of these inequities over and over again, from heat island to flooding issues to health disparities, income, as well as proportion of people of color. And you'll just see over and over again that so many of those maps look the same.
My husband is here and he's from the South Boston area. Plenty of trees and air and country living. He comes here and all of a sudden he has asthma. He has sinus issues. He has allergy and bronchitis and all of that. And it's like, what? But we have to get a handle on it. We have to get it under control so that our children can thrive. Because all of these health issues, it affects the way that they learn. It affects the way that they live. And so we have to do better.
Over the past few months, the Sustainability Office of Richmond has conducted many walks in different local neighborhoods, collecting environmental data. This data has shown that although neighborhoods may be close in location, they're still very dissimilar in environmental conditions.
This is Windsor Farms, an affluent neighborhood located in Richmond with a typical home value estimated at $1.2 million. As we walked through these neighborhoods, we noticed that the air was cool, there was little to no noise pollution, and it was an overall pleasant experience.
This is Jackson Ward, a historically African-American district in Richmond. During the 1940s, this is one of the neighborhoods targeted by redevelopment plans. The historic community's social structure was segregated, low-income individuals were clustered within the area, and pre-existing homes were destroyed in order to build freeways, broad urban boulevards, office buildings, and other infrastructural projects. Walking through this district, we noticed that the air was much more congested and heavier. We also learned through interviews that there are 2 fire stations located on either side of the neighborhood, contributing to a high level of noise pollution.
Speak personally as far as the most pressing issues, and so I would say a lot of them, but traffic is a real problem. A lot of people drive regularly to go short distances, mostly because our infrastructure is not built for this to be a walkable city. And then heat. It's getting very hot, and I don't think Richmond realizes how much it's impacting us, as well as the flooding.
Currently, Virginia averages slightly fewer than 10 dangerous heat days a year. By 2050, Virginia is projected to see such days quadruple to nearly 40 dangerous heat days a year. Health conditions such as asthma, diabetes, and high blood pressure are exacerbated by an increase in heat waves.
In addition, there are more than 260,000 Virginians living in areas with an increased risk of inland flooding. These future realities will put already vulnerable communities at an even greater risk.
We wanted to learn how Richmond got to this point and what factors exist for such predictions to persist.
One of the main problems that we're experiencing right now is that Richmond is booming. People want to move here for a number of reasons, and that's great. However, it brings in money in the way that Black communities, brown communities have intentionally been disinvested. So an influx of funding coming into these communities that don't have the literal built infrastructure to handle that type of influx. There's a lot of renovations taking place, and then people are being kicked out. There's displacement because of that.
Gentrification is a big deal, not just because of housing issues, but because of health. We're bringing in all these major developers, selling them all of these properties and buildings that have been abandoned for so long, and while there's so many amazing things we could do with them, instead we're turning them into more apartment buildings, more condos, more townhouses, creating, number one, unaffordable housing. Number two, it's creating more environmental problems. It's so much pavement, it's so many bricks, so much concrete, it's not enough green space. And it seems like everybody's saying, oh, we're gonna help, but it's nothing being done until the last year or two that I've known that's really fast forward. We have to just take a step back and stop pushing to make us this enormous big city. We didn't try to be a big city, we tried to be Richmond. And that's all we want to do is be Richmond. We don't want to be New York where you can't even see the skyline, the sunset and the sunrise. We want to be able to see our skyline. We want to be able to see the beautiful skies and things around us. And you can't do that if we have, these gigantic buildings and towers coming up everywhere.
A lot of people that have lived in the city for a very long time regularly don't go to the river. Like, it's a whole experience. I can't remember exactly who I was talking with, but they ran a program with inner city children, and they would make a point to take them down to the river, and they would just take their shoes off, and it would just be so embracing. They would just be like, who knew this river was right here? It's like, that there's a river, but if you don't have easy access to it, like a lot of these privileged neighborhoods do, then what good is it?
To combat these problems, many Richmonders have taken on the responsibility of creating contingency plans and trying to mitigate the consequences of environmentally detrimental human activity.
So, RV Green 2050 as an initiative was announced back in 2017 by Mayor LeVar Stoney, just in the first couple months of his first term. And this was the next evolution of the city's sustainability program, which was founded over 10 years ago. And with the RV Green 2050, we're transitioning from a wider ranging sustainability program to a more focused climate program. So we are focusing on reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, to do our part as Richmonders to mitigate the impacts of climate change globally. So we're preparing for things that we're already seeing, like more heat waves, hotter average temperatures, more extreme rain events, and flooding. And we're doing all of that with a focus on equity, and particularly racial equity. And right now we are actually deep in the planning phases, so we'll be coming back out to the community next April with a draft plan to get more input, with the goal of having our first action plan to get us to 2030 adopted next summer 2022.
Everybody wants to have a beautiful neighborhood Never will you walk across someone that just says, I wish it looked worse, I wish it was hotter, I wish I didn't have access to these wonderful amenities that I am so close to. And so allowing ourselves as individuals to recognize, like, yes, there has been a lot of pain and trauma, and it unfortunately has not necessarily ended. However, as much as you feel the call to, allow yourself to remain engaged.
So what can you do to help? Educate yourself on issues to make better informed decisions. Choose to walk or bike rather than drive. Lobby and vote to ensure that your elected representatives represent your values. All of these actions can create positive change. Together, we can create a sustainable future that will function for everyone.